Привет, дорогие друзья! Вы на канале Джейк Цветок. С вами, как всегда, я, Джейк. Мы с вами продолжаем прохождение Stories, Patch of Destinies. Если вы думаете, почему моего голоса нет видео со Спанч Бобом, потому что я забыл включить микрофон снова. Хочу сказать сразу же, у меня есть два для вас, о чем я хочу сказать. Первое, я попытался поиграть в Marvel Avengers. Признаться, она лагала, и картинка была немножко плохая, потому что я поставил все почти на минимум. И поэтому картинка была очень плохая, и она еще и при этом лагала, поэтому я не смогу снимать ее как прохождение. Пока что только в этом году. В следующем, я надеюсь, я сниму. Хотя вам уже не будет интересно. Второе. Кто смотрит меня, и наверняка кто-то, наверное, оставил какой-то комментарий и увидел, что я, возможно, его удалил. Я хочу сказать, я удаляю комментарии только в том случае, если я считаю их неприемлемыми. По такому случаю, как оставить какую-либо ссылку на какой-либо сайт, который мне кажется неприемлемым или подозрительным. Я могу понять, если ты, например, напишешь, что я хочу встречаться с девушкой или с парнем, ну, в зависимости от кого, кто это пишет, какого пола. Ладно, это я могу принять, это я не буду удалять или банить, я на это могу и забить просто. Но вот когда кто-то оставляет ссылку просто на какой-то сайт, и я буду это проверять, и я перешел, и мне показалось это как-то неправильным, поэтому я удалил этот комментарий с этой ссылкой. Поэтому я говорю, если вы оставляете ссылку, знайте, я ее буду проверять. Если мне кажется, что она неприемлема или неправильная, я буду ее удалять. Это все. А сейчас, как всегда, бой. Вообще, я хотел... Так. Погодите, сейчас настройки. Диалоги можно немножко так сделать. Все, теперь меня вы, возможно, услышите. Я вообще, когда я убирал Люпину, я скорее думал, что пойду-ка я прокачаю Рейнальда дальше. Ну, чтобы у меня было чуть больше очков способностей. Но нет. Я как бы не зашел в игру, чтобы это сделать, поэтому... Как у меня осталось, типа, так и осталось.
Ronaldo had been here, at this exact place, at this exact time. But this time, there were so many more ravens.
И тут сейчас все говорят, ты уже задолбал через этот колодец проходить, проходи по длинному пути. Возможно, надо было бы, правда, по длинному пойти пути. Но я решил сократить. Так что вам не жаловаться, господа. Почему ты его бил, если я направлял тебя на этого? Чтоб ты его добил, когда тот лежал.
Ravens were landing everywhere. The advance guard. He'd better get moving. If they got to Lupino first, they'd eat him for breakfast. Or a snack. Ravens weren't picky. If they got hungry, they sometimes forgot to interrogate their prisoners. Even top spies like Lupino. Well, unless he really was a traitor, obviously. Then they'd probably pin a medal on his chest.
Даже не знаю, вот это качнуть или выносливость.
Cool.
Ладно, пускай будет здоровье.
Wish I could do that.
Потому что все равно он на этом и кончается, типа, все. Больше уже здоровья нельзя дальше качнуть. Так что...
Dirty and bloody, Renato finally reached Lapino. The rabbit was practicing his shuffle. Renato recognized the cards.
We capture Zenobia, we find out what she knows, and that's the whole war right there. Easy peasy, lemon squeezy. Capture the Emperor's greatest general, who happened to also be a deadly sorcerer, and, oh, his only daughter? That would be worth it. And it would be nice to see her. He'd always had a soft spot for her. And he felt sure she had one for him.
On the other hand, he could still get to the core of the Sky Ripper, even if he couldn't get the whole thing. It must have great power. To make the Sky Ripper, the Transcendent Emperor had wrapped an armature around the eye of a god. Bernardo had already let that armature slip away to save Lapino's life. But even its core, the eye torn from a god, surely they could fashion a great weapon from that.
The core of the Sky Ripper? Lapino's excited. That's an actual thing that we could just go and get. You've been busy.
He sure had. Renato told him all the things he'd been up to. Soon they got to talking about old times. But
Блин, я забыл, что это можно пропустить. Ой, давайте дальше.
it's beautiful here, thought Renato. It was.
Так, давайте дальше. Дальше у нас достать неборез, не довериться Люпина и пойти в горы. А там уже пойти против флота и получить концовку.
There was something sour in the air. Like the earth had ruptured over something that had been fermenting for a very long time.
Oh, hey, there's a couple of red spots on your feathers.
Oh, wait, not yet. Renato felt wrong all over. He could feel an almost palpable sickness in the air. And if the land could have tumors, they would look like these monstrous crystals. The forest was quieter than it had been. There were insects, a few birds. He didn't count the ravens. Renato smelled sick animals and dying ones. No healthy ones. I'm getting a bad feeling about this, Renato thought. Maybe Lapino was right. Maybe he should have kidnapped Zenobia instead of coming here. As he held the radiant icosahedron, Renato felt queasy, like dozens of tiny worms would...
Tell you what, said Lapino. I'll take it to the observatory. You attack the Imperial outpost.
The Imperial outpost was a vital communications node. Taking it could shatter the Empire's ability to coordinate. And it would be full of secret plans and maps and maybe even rebel prisoners. It was a good target for a hero like Renato. But what if Lapino lost the core to the Empire? That could be a good thing, couldn't it? Was Renato ready to take that risk? Maybe it was better if he brought the core to the scientists himself. Lapino was a touchy rabbit. Renato knew that. As Renato watched Lupino vanish on the horizon, he could feel nausea building in him. He felt ill. Could his knees really be aching this much? But how could he have handed the core off to Lupino? That was a recipe for disaster. Renato felt worse. All his joints were... well, this was just... squalid. Renato had given up in the Skyripper's armature to save his friend Lupino. But without its armature, Skyripper's core was a deadly poison. A cannon trap. Who kept these things loaded anyway? Cowardly warlocks. Why wouldn't they come close where he could kill them?
А если так посмотреть на фигурку Рональда, он держится, ну за что, ну за руку или за что-то, но правда как будто вот выглядит он как будто ему плохо. Вот именно. Не просто здесь хп отнимается, но еще и фигурка прям выглядит, что ему плохо. Это классно сделано, и правда можно поверить, что как будто это его убивает все же, они просто бежит и его ему хоть бы хны. Ну, кроме того, хп отнимается стоит.
Renato wasn't sure he believed that, but Lupino was talking so fast. It always seemed to make sense. The secret rebel base. Yes. They had engineers there. But wait. Calaveras, the sage in the mountains. Maybe he would know what to do with the naked core.
Теперь мы выбираем Калавероса.
The core was killing him. He needed help. The sage, Calaveras, had given him the maps to find the armature and the core. If anyone knew the true name of the Transcendent Emperor, if anyone knew how to assemble the Skyripper, Calaveras did. If anyone could heal Renato and render the core safe, at least to its bearer, surely it was he. The base of the mountain was the only safe place for a landing. He would have to continue on foot, muscles aching. Calaveras was a scholar, not a doctor. Could he really save Renato from the poison radiating from the lost god's eye he was so recklessly carrying? Oh, this was not a fun way to die. Even if he survived. No one would write ballads about the fox whose knees ached forever, would they? Not unless he paid for it. And he hated paying for publicity.
Hey, you guys interested in real estate? Because you're about to buy the farm.
It was chilling walking through the living mountains. There was always noise up ahead. Insects, birds, the croak and flutter of ravens arranging ambushes. But close by, there was only the breeze and the trickle of melting snow. As if every living thing was holding its breath for his poisonous burden to move on. Renato wasn't sure he should have rescued Lupino. He could have had the Sky Ripper. Now all he had was the core, and it was killing him.
The core! Splendid!
Croaked Calaveras.
Where's the armature?
Right, I was kind of hoping you wouldn't need it.
No, I don't. It's just a professional interest. We've got much better prismatics than the old TE ever did.
So Calaveras was an arcane engineer. He fussed at the core all day. He wrapped it with silver chains And in front of it, he placed a huge, round ruby, so that it looked like a monstrous, floating eye. Ah, so... what is it?
Yeah, I call it the oculum. It's my very first death ray.
And it won't poison me?
No, it's completely safe now.
Anything I should watch out for?
Yeah, try to avoid pointing at any mirrors.
As he loaded the oculum onto the Farfarer, Bernardo was a little concerned about Calaveras. People who were utterly sure of themselves, he had found, were either experts or horribly wrong. Or both. But Bernardo only needed to fire the oculum once. He only needed to destroy one ship. The Emperor's ship. And the war was over. Bernardo plunged into the Imperial fleet. He felt the oculum humming. He no longer felt sick. This was going to be fun. Or at least, it was going to be over.
Хоть что было весело.
Bernardo resisted the temptation to fire the oculum until the time came. He could sense its arcane energies yearning to escape the sage's wrappings. But it wasn't eating him alive. So that was a plus. He felt good about himself. He'd saved a friend, he'd helped the rebels, he'd relied on himself, but he'd listened to others. He felt like the right sort of hero. Wise, yet decisive. Calaveras had been so sure it would work. Maybe he could fire it just a few times. No harm in that, right? But only when he absolutely needed to. Renardo's arm was getting tired. The core was no longer eating at him, but he still felt weak. His stamina was shot. But he had the oculum. When the ravens swarmed him, it would sometimes fire its death ray. It seemed to be warming up too, firing more and more often. Maybe he should let it cool off. He decided to stop using it entirely. Bernardo wondered if he could learn to cook this way. Probably not. Odd. The oculum was still hot to the touch. He almost thought it was getting even hotter. Well, that was ridiculous, of course. Anyway, He'd only to fire it one more time, and then he could chuck the whole contraption into the abyss, and the Emperor's ship was now in range. Reynardo squinted. He could make out the line of ravens protecting the ship. Zenobia in front, conjuring. And on the deck, yes, that was his Imperial Majesty, pacing in his golden armor. Reynardo lined up his shot and fired. Caught in the beam, the ship burst into flames. The ravens and Zenobia exploded. The Emperor, too, exploded. Reynardo waited for the beam to stop, but it only got brighter, and the oculum hotter. Frantic, Reynardo pulled the oculum towards the abyss. The ruby burst into flames. The shiny metal casing glowed, then melted. That was good. Now the core could cool off, right? Reynardo ran. The blast incinerated him instantly, along with both fleets. The shockwave could be felt across all Erda. That winter, with neither Empire nor rebels to rule them, the islands slid into banditry, and so began the Second Age of Darkness.
Oh, again?
But he already had all the secrets he needed.
He was sure of that. He must have not used them the right way.
What was the best, worst mistake he could make? Probably trusting that traitor Lapino.
Серьезно? Ну ладно. Герой, что это за герой? Герой, который ищет равновесие, принимая мудрые и твердые решения. Лис, у которого болят колени. Не очень-то подходит, признаться. Дорогие друзья, я на этом с вами прощаюсь. Я надеюсь, все понравилось. Вы подписались, поставили лайк, написали комментарий, нажали колокольчик. Поддерживайте канал всем тем, что я перечислил. Ждете дальше видео по сторис. Нам еще чуть-чуть осталось только, и мы дойдем до самого грандиозного финала. Наверняка. И я с вами прощаюсь. Всем удачи и пока.